Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mack Flash Five, the show where we like to take our top five movies of a certain subject or genre or topic, and we listen here for enjoyment. I'm Matt. I'm here with AB. I'm here with Scott.
What's up, pal?
Hooded. We are hatted. It looks like laundry day. What's up, guys?
We match. What's up? How are you guys?
I'm good, man. Yeah. Ready. I'm ready to rock and also roll.
Oh, that's the music show. This is the movie show.
Oh, nuts. All right. I'm ready to learn and to teach.
Yeah,
There you go.
Impart wisdom and
Yes, that's excellent because, yes, our topic today is our top five mentor films. Now, doing the research, I mean, the simplest title for it is mentor films, but it's obviously, there's gonna be student teacher films, mentor apprentice films, coach and player films, because there is no stopping like the definition that you can apply to so many of these movies. Scott picked this one. Now, the way the show works is after we decide on a topic, we each go our separate ways and come back with our top five. We're going to talk about 3 in depth on our list, and we will have 2 honorable mentions. Scott picked the topic, so he has the honor of going first.
Yeah, thanks. I went back in my head because I do these lists. We booked this one a few months ago because I remember I was at the gym, and gyms haven't been open for a while. And I don't know if it was because I wanted to talk about a certain movie or not, or that I just knew that there was like 1,000 of these films. And like, it just depends on what your like definition of like a mentor is. It's a mentor in like a team setting, a business setting, anything like that. So that being said, I'll start. I'm going to kick off with my number 3. And it is funny that you said, mentor. My number 3 is a movie I have wanted to get on the list, and I am glad to use it on this one. Probably not at first glance the most mentor-student relationship you would think of, but we'll dive into it and we're going to talk about it why. And it is certainly between a player and a coach, and I will be focusing on the father-son, and that's the relationship in Creed 2.
Yes.
So I want to dive into Creed 2 as a mentor-student film, and Creed, it was my favorite sports film of all time.
Yes, I'm just realizing it's Creed 2 and not Creed.
No, it's Creed 2. Yeah. So Creed is an incredible story. The Rocky franchise as well could all be used for mentors, and we can talk about why I canceled out some of the other ones and reasons on that. And Creed is a really great relationship with Adonis and Rocky in Creed 1. But what I want to showcase and focus on is Ivan Drago with his son Victor in Creed 2. And you see this movie, and from the first trailer, I was like, oh, they're really going to ground this in reality, bringing Ivan Drago back. And when you see the film, Ivan's been, Rocky 4 is a little goofy sometimes, more often than not in that film. So this movie picks up, 30 years later, and Ivan's been, kicked out as the laughingstock of Russia, moving to Ukraine and raising his son Victor as almost a junkyard dog raised on violence and anger as his ticket to get back into Russia and get back into the good graces. And you see that, you see how he pushes them, and he knows at the perfect time he's going to unleash his son on the boxing world. And it just so happens to be against Apollo's son, the man that he killed, adding another wrinkle to it. But through this, and I think this film is not appreciated enough for the humanization and the relationship that it builds with them. And I want to showcase that relationship now through my favorite scene. And the Rocky montages are iconic, but I'm a monster fan of the running montage, specifically for this part, where Ivan is training Victor for the second fight between him and Adonis, and he kind of shoves him off, and then it shows Ivan Drago's face where he's like, oh, okay, he's getting pissed off with me. And then as the music hits kind of its crescendo, he gets in with the pads to spar against him, and it just shows his face right here that he's been waiting for this moment for a long, long, long time. Goes a little rough, and the camera holds back on him, being like, "Oh no, I think I've gone too far through this whole thing." Ivan, Dolph Lundgren, will never be applauded for his acting skills, but he showcases a lot of emotion through this film and through this scene, culminating in the finale as he goes through with the towel hugging his son. And then at the beginning of the movie, he was in a car chasing his son as he runs. I think a really powerful moment of that is him getting out of the car and running alongside of his son. And like I said, for it being a mentor and a student film and a father-son relationship, it just showcases how much the mentor can grow and be a fleshed out character from his relationship with his student. And that for 30 years, he was fueling him by anger and rage, when in actuality, what brought them together was love and compassion. So for a while, and because I wanted to talk about my number 3 mentor is the relationship between Ivan and Victor Drago in Creed 2.
That's terrific.
Yeah, it's
Thank
great.
you. Thank you. Yeah, that's my favorite part of the movie. And I love Michael B. Jordan. Michael Jordan's one of my favorite actors working. He's just doing his thing in Creed 2. And I saw this movie and I'm like, there is so much good stuff. And there's even better scenes. There's like a scene at the end of the fight that was cut. And I'm like, why did Stephen Cable or Stallone have that cut where, he kind of apologizes and acknowledges the guilt of Apollo's death? And it's just incredible stuff that they do with the Drago family and the Drago characters. So that's my number 3. I'm glad I got to talk about it.
And I really like that movie too. And it's hard, and I can't add anything to your aspect of the film because of the specific topic we're on. Anything I would say would just be, vague brushstrokes over the whole movie, which I do enjoy very much.
Yeah, it's great. Everyone knows. I've said the Rocky franchises, aside from 5, but 5 was on my guilty pleasures. They're all very, very, very good, and you all get something different out of it. Even at the core of this movie's a father-son, a father film. The final montage shows, Adonis with his daughter, and he's at the gravesite of his father, and Rocky's reconnecting with his son, and his son has a son, and he's meeting, and it's all intertwining while they do the running too. And you're just like, this is all a movie about fathers and their children, effectively, one branch of mentor students.
Yeah.
We all, Go. What do you got,
pal? Okay. For my number 3, I went the sports route as well.
There's so many.
I know it was as I was doing this list, I was, of course, you kind of type it into Google, and so the first dozen or so are sports movies. This was not one of those first dozen. It is part of a franchise which I hold dear, and this will probably be the only way I could talk about this film.
I love it.
My number 3 is D3, The Mighty Ducks.
Let's go. Yes, please. This is exactly Creed 2, but for you.
Very much so. Now, in terms of the mentor student or coach, in this case, coach player, the focus is on Charlie Conway. And this is the only photos I have, so I'll just take it down. Charlie Conway, the movie starts off with him feeling abandoned by his coach, Emilio Estevez, Gordon Bombay, and then feeling somewhat rejected by the new coach. Charlie has to maintain a relationship with 2 mentors. He's pretty much being traded off. He goes from Coach Bombay to Coach Orion, who doesn't disrespect Charlie's playing or his position on the team. He takes away his captaincy, which Charlie hates, and eventually they butt heads so much so that Charlie quits the team. When he does that, he goes off to meet a third mentor in the film, Hans, who is a surrogate grandfather for all the players, who eventually dies in the film. And
Spoiler.
they all, spoiler alert. But it's after that Bombay comes back and kind of puts the smarts back into Charlie and talks about, you have to give this guy a break. You kids didn't like me when I first showed up. You have to give him a chance. He's teaching you, to play the sport you love. Charlie comes back. He decides he wants to play 2-way hockey.
I'm a scorer, not a defenseman. That's the line in the film.
That's the line, and couldn't be further from the truth. But for sure, this was the only way I was going to be able to talk about D3 because it wasn't going to show up on another favorite sports movies or even the favorite Ducks movies, since there's only 3 of them. But D3 is my number 3.
Very cool.
It's great. I remember this was a big deal. This came out 1996 or 7. It came out after The Team, and I remember Paul Korea as a cameo. And I remember being in like grade 6 or 7 and I like watching it. It was on Wonderful World of Disney, and I think it debuted on like a Sunday night. And I remember it being a big deal. Like, and we watched it, and it was more adult. You watch it now, and it is quite adult. There's the themes, and then they have their Hem and Bombay have their talk in the stands, watching him and his disabled daughter.
Yeah.
And there's adult themes to it, and he kind of like, it's funny that there was never more Mighty Ducks films until this show, and the show's goofy, but this was taking it a little bit more adult with the characters and kind of acknowledging how goofy, because he didn't really like how goofy they were, and they won on luck and stuff, and that aside from Adam Banks, who left to play varsity, they had no real skill or plan. So he like kind of acknowledged it, and so yeah, I remember it being a big fun movie that was like largely forgotten. But yeah, I'm so glad you put that on.
And it was kind of a big deal. I mean, I don't know how big of a fight it was to get Emilio Estevez. I mean, obviously he's got the name over the title credit, and he's probably got the least screen time of anybody in the movie.
Before we realize, like now we watch movies so differently, but he probably shot one day. He probably shot two scenes in one day and got $10 million. And
even Joshua Jackson, he didn't want to make a third one.
Yeah,
I've heard that, and that really kind of went towards his character as being like, I don't want to be here.
True.
Is really reflected in the movie.
All
AB.
Right. All right, so my number 3. So there is a genre of film that I really like, that one of the major components of a good portion of those films is the not necessarily a mentor student thing, but a master and student film. And I am talking about martial arts films. And so I decided to pick one that kind of encapsulates that. And it, like Matt said, has multiple masters in it, multiple teachers. And so the one I chose is from 1979. It's directed by Joseph Koyo, and it is Mystery of Chess Boxing.
Cool.
And so Mystery of Chess Boxing is partially serious, but also it's a comedy, has a bit of comedy in there as well. And so you have the main character, who is Apo, and can you guys hear that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a song by Wu-Tang Clan, which is also called The Mystery of the Chess Boxing, and it is written based on this, obviously, which is why I know about this movie, is through Wu-Tang. And so so the main character, Apo, he wants to learn Kung Fu, and so he goes to this one school, and he basically gets bullied by the other students and by the main teacher there. And so he goes away dejected, but the cook there decides to take him in and give him a job, serving the students there. And secretly you find out that the cook is a Kung Fu master. And so he starts teaching him, but just like Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid, he starts secretly teaching him by like teaching him through his way he serves. And so this guy's like, oh, I want to learn Kung Fu. And the guy's like, well, you are learning it. And so he gets better and better as it goes on. And so eventually he leaves. And so as he's leaving, the cook was like, okay, you need to go and seek out this guy. And so he gives him a name, because I've taught you all that I can teach you. And so he sends him out again. And so the reason why this guy wants to learn Kung Fu is he wants to get revenge for his father and mother's death by the ghost-faced killer, who is the namesake for the rapper, and this is the Ghostface Killer on the left hand. And
from this movie, he took his name from this. That's sick.
And he uses a bunch of.
That's my favorite episode we've ever done.
He uses the sound clips from this movie a lot in his songs. But so what happens is the Ghostface Killer will show up, and the person will be doing something. Like a person will be doing something, say like like pulling weeds out of the ground or whatever, and that metal plate that's on the right there will like get thrown onto the ground in front of them, and they'll look at it and they're like, oh crap, look up, and they're going, the Ghostface Killer, and then the Ghostface Killer does this. You can see his mid laugh there. He does this crazy laugh. He's like, ah. And so then a fight ensues, and Ghostface Killer ends up murdering that person in a ridiculous fashion. It's after like a big drawn out fight, and that happens multiple times throughout the film. And so he has killed the main character's father and mother. And so he wants to learn kung fu to get revenge on it. So eventually he ends up with this other teacher who starts teaching him chess. And so again, this guy's like, well, what's up? Like, why do I need to learn chess? I want to learn kung fu. And so again, you find out, oh, it's all connected, that's the style of kung fu. And the end fight, it ends up with not just Apo and the Ghostface Killer, but it's a 2-on-1. It's the teacher and Apo versus Ghostface Killer, and it's one of the greatest fights that's been put onto film. It's incredible. It's an incredible fight. It's just a really fun film. There's some real goofy stuff in the middle with like, some slapstick comedy while he's doing his, serving in the restaurant. But for the most part, the fights are really great, including that final fight between the three-way fight between the three guys. And it's just great. And like every time the Ghostface Killer is on screen is amazing because he's so like unintentionally funny in what he does, but also like pretty badass. He definitely like does some like badass stuff to some people, which is always fun. So yeah.
What year is that from?
1979.
Cool.
And I got to watch it on the Wu-Tang Presents Roku channel, which features all selected kung fu flicks from that they've said.
Yeah, I was like, about that a bit ago.
Yeah, I was like, sweet. I just discovered that a little while ago, and so it's tons on there. So
did you just see it for the first time?
No.
Oh,
but like I was looking for it to watch for the show, and I was just going to download it, and then I saw it. I'm like, what's this streaming service that's free? It's all free too. Which cool. I'm like, yeah.
Awesome.
Scott.
Cool.
Number two.
Exactly with this list. Like I said, we just talked about how we have some fun, and Matt and I got a chance to put on movies that we wouldn't have otherwise put on our list, and that was fun for our threes. And I did come up with a long list of about a dozen movies or so that I really wanted to talk about. And I realized that once we got to the top of the list, I'm like, you know what? Just because an answer is so obvious when it comes to a mentor-student relationship means that it's also the right one. So with that said, my number two is Goodwill Hunting. 1997, directed by Gus Van Sant. Not much more anyone can say about this film. This is an iconic film that came out seminal for the careers of Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and in an Oscar-winning role. I say it's a Rushmore performance of acting is it's Robin Williams. And basically the mentor-student relationship between Sean and Will. And, Will's the rough kid, but he's a genius. Most everyone knows about this movie. Knows, and he goes through mentors and therapists, and nobody wants to take the time on him. But Professor Lambeau, played by Stellan Skarsgård, knows he has the potential, and he gets him in with Sean. And Sean realizes that he sees a lot of himself in it, and he knows that he's going to be real with him. He doesn't give a shit about any of the smarts or the games. He doesn't fall for the games that he plays. Because he knows he's above that bullshit, because he's kind of a rough Boston guy too, and they both connect and bond over that. And he calls him out on his shit in the park bench scene, and it's one of the most iconic scenes in film. I believe Robin Williams is honored with a statue or of some sort, or a plaque on the spot at the pond that they recorded that scene. But there's just so much between them, the long scenes about his wife, how, when the first time he oversteps and he like puts hands on Will, and Will kind of is like, oh shit. And, that's where he kind of earns his first, he knocks down one pillar, and ultimately it culminates with the it's not your fault scene. And that's, where he's all in on that. And as the end of the film too, how they kind of have their bonds shared. But, it just goes through between the mentor and the student, and how, Will has two mentors. Let's include Skarsgård in there. And, Skarsgård is the respected MIT professor, a bit of a scumbag. He can't be trusted. He's wearing the nice suits, he's got the stuff, and he's flirting with the girls. Where Sean, like I said, Sean's kind of schlubby, he's widowed, and he just doesn't give a shit. And that's the one that Will gravitates to, and he's the one who gets through to Will. And he knows exactly how to, and what buttons to push, and when to get the most out of him, as all good mentors. So as I said, I could have put something else here, but I thought of it, I'm like, this has been in my top 10 favorite films since I first saw it. And I wanted to make sure, I was surprised I hadn't used it already, but just everything else, the behind the scenes stuff is great. Damon and Affleck writing it, how it came, the stories are Hollywood legend at this time. So for that, my number 2 is Good Will Hunting.
I much prefer the sequel, Hunting Season.
Hey, you're just not that good, Will Hunting.
Yeah.
Applesauce, bitch.
Yeah.
We all love this movie, right?
I love this movie.
Yeah, of course. How could you not? This is like a complete, perfect guy's film. It touches on his relationship with Minnie Driver. It touches on his relationship with his friends. He doesn't have a father figure, but you do get through the scene when he talks about, how he used to get beat by his stepdad to Robin. And you're just like, they're bonding over this. This is unbelievable.
One day we'll do a list of our top 5 films that give us therapy or therapeutic films, and this is my number 1.
Okay.
I put this on all the time when I'm just not feeling down, but when I need I need a quick cliff notes of guidance. Good Will Hunting goes on.
And Sean McGuire's and then another one that I have, and I'll talk about in a little bit, I think are Mount Rushmore performances of lead and supporting. I think this is one of the best acting performances of all time.
But I just want to continue. There's the 2 mentors in that movie, Professor Lambeau and Sean. Stellan Skarsgård sees Will as himself. Well, kind of he's going to use him to become famous again.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Robin Williams doesn't want that for that to happen. And they get into a fight over what they feel is the best path for Will to take. And that's one of my favorite scenes. The 2 mentors fighting over their student or protege.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly. So like I said, I didn't want to overthink it. And just for the fact that you said you can get so much out of it too, and their relationship, and where Will starts at the beginning of the movie and where he ends at the end of the movie, and it's all because he's been shepherded by his mentor. Perfect student-mentor relationship. Yep. So that's my number 2.
All right, Matt.
We got it.
My number 2, similar to Scott saying there, when it's obvious, you got to put it on there. And I'm going to stick in a certain family business, and we're going to talk about Wall Street.
Let's go. I burned it. I'm so pissed. I burned it for 1987 movies. It's one of my top 15
Emilio Estevez's brother, Charlie Sheen, in Wall Street. Now, this was, like I said, Google it, and it's up there. It's not necessarily number 1, but it was on there. When I saw it, I was like, of course that. Downloaded it, watched it, and loved it today or the other day as much as I did the first time I watched it. Just the first point I want to get out of the way is, if this is a movie that could never be remade. In a sense that
they kind of tried it.
Money Never Sleeps as an honorable mention.
Right. Sequel, one thing, but it's set in the the 80s, and it was shot and written for and surmises the 80s lifestyle of a player. You got to be a player. You can't do that in Queens. Is a line Charlie Sheen writes or says, and I could see it somebody trying to, similar to Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, I was going to say Wolf of Wall Street is
right.
similar.
But that one takes place over a couple of decades, maybe. Yeah. Somebody would want to.
A little bit of a parody, and buys into itself to acknowledge the excess, whereas this one's more the underbelly. But yeah. they're the same.
Someone would want
business.
to remake this movie, have it set in 1986 or whatever, and would look and sound wrong.
Yeah.
It's very much of its time, and in that way makes it timeless in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from like the technology and the clothes and fashion and stuff, which is this, but never mind all that. Michael Douglas is Gordon Gekko, a huge, financial player of Manhattan. He controls.
He's a hedge funds manager.
He's a hedge funds manager?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that his official title?
I think something like that, yeah.
He makes millions of dollars a day is what he does. Mm-hmm. Charlie Sheen admires that, and he wants to become his broker. He calls his office every day asking for an appointment.
How many times? This is the kid calls me 59 days in a row. There ought to be a picture of you in the dictionary next to persistence, kid.
He finally gets through when he offers up a birthday present for Gordon Gekko, his favorite cigars. He gets 5 minutes with him, and he sells him on some airline stock that is going to rise, and he knows that because his father works for the airline. They've just settled on a lawsuit. It's going to, increase the value of the stock, and he tells him that. Michael Douglas says, "Okay, buy me a bunch of shares. Here's some extra money. Play around with that." The stock goes up on the airline. The other ones fall, and he kind of fires them. Charlie Sheen says, "No, take me back. I know I can make you money." He says, "Fine, but here's what I need you to do. I need you to go spy on some other people." And he does that. And he gets him to do all of this illegal stuff. There's one favorite sequence of mine that is relatable today, in which after Charlie Sheen has information on a steel company is going to increase in value, Michael Douglas says, "Okay, buy a bunch for me, call the Wall Street Chronicle, tell them about it, and then tell your friends." Reminds me of like when no, this is the nerdy version, when new Funko Pops come out and we are all in our chat. We got to cover ourselves first. Then we'll go on Facebook and tell people where we found them, and maybe they can get theirs later.
Fantastic.
So that goes through. And the airline stock continues to grow. Eventually, an idea comes into their minds like, let's buy the company outright. Charlie Sheen will be implanted as president, and everybody wins. They want to settle things with the union, settle things with the pilot, settle things with mechanics and everything. And everyone's happy for about 1 second when Charlie Sheen finds out that Gordon Gekko is not going to help everybody. He's going to sell the company, sell the planes, liquidate everything, and make $70 million. After hearing that,
we needed more yachts to water ski behind.
After hearing that, Charlie Sheen takes everything he learns from Gordon Gekko and reverses it against him in order to lower the value of the airline stock. What does Michael Douglas say? Okay, we'll only make $10 million today. And he's upset that he's making only $10 million.
In the 80s.
In the 80s.
Yeah, which is a lot.
The film ends with Charlie Sheen getting arrested, wearing a wire, ratting out Gordon Gekko for insider trading, and they're going away for a while. But it's a wonderful story about, learn what you know from the master, but don't teach them everything because they'll use it against you. That's not exactly a very good moral necessarily in terms of, the Gordon Gekko of it all, but certainly he taught him well. And that's the point of the list today.
Awesome.
That's great. And you get stuff too. I mean, like as we talked about, it's kind of two mentors too, in the sense of Goodwill Hunting, because you can also tie in his father, Martin Sheen, playing his real father, playing his father in the film as well too. And, he doesn't want him to get in the airline business. It's his big hotshot son, and he kind of screws him over and uses that. So there's a little bit of that. And it is cool that it is Michael Douglas and it is Martin Sheen, and they're both big stars, Hall of Fame titans in acting, and they are navigating them, and they're kind of like the angels on each shoulder, which one's going to win out, and ultimately, but no, without a doubt, I wish I could have used this. This came to mind too, and because I love one so much, I almost use Money Never Sleeps. So.
Yikes!
Nah.
Good thing.
Just to slide it and just be like,
whatever movie that is.
My number honorable mention is Money Never Sleeps.
I know.
Let's
And
talk about the first one.
They bring
let's
Sheen back.
Let's suck it.
They bring Sheen back for the second one, and they turn him into Charlie Sheen, and it's like this ruins everything, and he's pretty much playing Charlie Harper, and you're just like, this.
It wasn't it was virtually a cameo. It was a
20-second cameo where he talks about how rich he is now, and you're like, this undoes everything. Oh.
I mean, and I don't even think he gets original lines in that movie. I'm pretty sure he regurgitates quotes.
Yeah,
from the first
does Blue? What was it? Blue Horseshoe Still Love Anacott Steel?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah. But I love Wall Street. Love Wall Street.
All right, so we're up to my number 2. My number 2 was on another list, and it was when this list came up, I pulled it off of that list right away, and I put it on this list, and it was going to be on my Hitman list, and I was like, no, it's going on this list for sure, and that is from 1972, directed by Michael Winner, and that is The Mechanic, starring Charles Bronson.
Okay, cool.
And so in this, Charles Bronson is an aging hitman who works for this secret organization, and so at the beginning of the film, there is about a 12 or 13 minute sequence where he is setting up a hit. And the way that he does things is he makes it seem like it is an accident. Like all the time, it's never appears that he killed anyone. It's always seems like an accident. So the first 12 or 13 minutes of the film has zero dialogue in it. You just see him orchestrating this hit, and it's this elaborate setup that he goes through to take out this one guy. And as soon as he's done with that, he goes to see the head of the organization, who is this old man. He's living in this mansion, and so this old man is who's the head of the secret organization tells Arthur Bishop, who is Charles Bronson, that he's worried because the secret organization has stopped talking to him. He doesn't know what's going on. And so while he's there, the old man's son, who is played by Jan Michael Vincent, who's Steve McKenna, the name of the character, shows up and tells his dad he needs some money. He's kind of a hippie, like playboy who just wants to party. And so he takes off, and so Charles Bronson gets his next file of who he's supposed to hit, and it ends up being the old man. And so he's been friends with the old man for years, been the hitman for the organization, and so now he's told that he has to take out the head of the organization by the organization, and so he ends up doing it. At the funeral, Jan Michael Vincent basically says, "Hey, can you give me a ride home?" And they become kind of close. They become kind of little pals. And so Charles Bronson decides he's going to take him on as an apprentice. And there's this really disturbing scene where Jan Michael Vincent's girlfriend threatens to kill herself, and he just basically watches her as she cuts her wrist. And like Charles Bronson's like, "You gonna do anything?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm good." And it ends up throwing her the keys to if you drive to the hospital, you drive yourself to the hospital, you can make it. And so he's like, okay, this guy's got what it takes to be a killer. So he starts training him. They takes him out on some hits. They end up doing some hits together. The organization finds out about it, and they decide they're going to take them both out. So there's a bunch of attempts on the both of them. They're all kind of on the run. And then, there's a cat and mouse game at the end between Jan Michael Vincent and Charles Bronson, and it has a fantastic thing. It was obviously remade in 2011 with Jason Statham and Ben Foster. And Ben Foster's great in that. And the old man in that is played by Donald Sutherland, who's always awesome. But they cheap out on the ending, and it's such a cheeseball ending to the remake that I remember watching it in theater and just groaning. I'm like, so cheeseball. And of course, it sets up a sequel, which the first one, spoiler, it ain't gonna have a sequel. The originals can't have a sequel.
State was remaking a lot of stuff at the time, and it was all kind of B-level schlock. So I bet he's probably just like, "Boy, I want this to be my franchise." And then they were like, "Well, it's not that movie," and he uses star power.
Yeah, and so the sequels, the remakes got some fun stuff. Like I said, I love Ben Foster. So if I could, like I always say, I'd like a hybrid movie with Charles Bronson and Ben Foster, because Jan Michael Vincent is kind of crappy. I'd like to have those two in a movie, and also we'll bring Donald Sutherland into the 70s because he's around during the 70s. Right? They can kind of old him up in the 70s and put him
have
into
him
that
bring
movie.
Have him bring back the aging thing and age him up like, hey,
exactly.
Soldier.
Exactly. So if we could make that hybrid movie, that would be fantastic. I would love that. The hybrid of the two Mechanic movies. But anyway, of the two, the original Mechanic is far superior. Like I said, especially that ending. The ending is one for the ages.
And Bronson's in it too, man. Bronson's a man. So.
And Michael Winner, it's the first time that Michael Winner worked with Charles Bronson. They'll end up working 6 times together, including 3 Death Wish movies that the two worked together on. But all their movies are pretty great. The 6 movies that they worked together. Michael Winner is one of the directors from the 70s that makes some wacky movies. We'll say what makes it. He likes making some wacky movies, some 70s kind of B-level schlock. Not schlock as in like bad, but like it's crazy. It's crazy crazy stuff in the 70s. But anyway, that's I love that I got to throw that on the list, and it is even better because I took it off that other list, put it on this, which made.
I know that's why when I'm behind the scenes, but I like when we plan our next 3-4 months in advance, and then you can. Well, is this more of a Hitman movie or more of a mentor movie? I really like the mentor.
It's both. Yeah, it's both. And I'm
like more.
Yeah, I can bring it over here, and throw another Hitman because there's 700 Hitman movies I like, but I'm like, this works way better as a mentor movie.
Perfect.
So,
cool.
All right, we're gonna go honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions here. So what I wanted to do is showcase just a few fun ones. One I recently watched, and we're gonna go with an A+ tippy top mountain of 2 of my favorite stars, past and present. And I'm gonna go with The Color of Money, directed by Martin Scorsese with Newman and Cruise. And listen, if Paul Newman's getting in on the fun with a very young future A+ star, I had to include Redford. So we're going to be honoring Robert Redford and Brad Pitt in 2000 Spy Game. So Color Money and Spy Game.
Cool.
All right. My honorable mentions include Role Models.
Yes.
I was this close. God bless. I was this close to Role Models for the age you turned 21. I couldn't get it on as an honorable mention. God, this is the funniest movie of the year.
I think me and Mike saw this in theater. It is very funny.
Oh, it's so good. No one talks about it. It's so good. Thank you for bringing it.
And I think there's an echo in here.
Hey.
I thought you might.
Nice.
So, man, I first saw it, and I think I was buying into reviews, and I think I thought it was a makeup Oscar for Newman's first. He's phenomenal in it. It's very good. It's legitimately really good. It's not. If there's a bad review, I don't know why.
And it's funny because the year before they gave him Lifetime Achievement Award, Oscar, and he couldn't accept it because he was on the set of The Color of Money, which he would then win Best Actor for.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Awesome.
All right, so my honorable mentions are my first one is from 1999, directed by Joe Johnson, and it is starring your boy Jake Gyllenhaal.
I saw the movie in school. I don't remember it though. They just rock it.
Homer Hickok, and he's a kid from a coal mining town who dreams of being an astronaut, and so Miss Riley, played by Laura Dern, kind of gives him the push to succeed. And it's got some great stuff with Chris Cooper as his dad. And my other one, I put on my double features thing, so I decided to throw it on here, my on-mens, and we got Whiplash. starring a bad mentor. This is a bad mentor
Right.
film, even though it's a mentor. He pushed him, and so yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
What was that with your double feature? What was the other one that went with that?
That was Black Swan.
Oh, okay.
All about being obsession for perfection.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Excellent.
Well, AB,
Yes.
that being said, there are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job. I watched this movie 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I watched it twice, and I watched it with the Damien Chazelle commentary. This is by far one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. We'll dive into the conversation a little more. As far as a mentor, you get J.K. Simmons as Terrence Fletcher, who's this iconic music teacher for this prestigious school in New York, but he runs it as if he's, Full Metal Jacket, as if he wants to tear down everyone and rebuild them in his image, but he doesn't want them to get too high because he wants to tear them down again. And in his mind, I suppose, you think he's pushing the most out of these people because he thinks that it's going to inspire them to achieve the level of the all-time greats like Charlie Parker or any of the other great jazz musicians. And Miles Teller's, he meets his match in young Andrew and Miles Teller, who, takes it, absorbs it, uses it to push himself further, and ultimately to the point of madness and breakdown of a relationship that he gets with Melissa Benoist, and doesn't really get off the ground. But like I said, he's all in, capital ALLIN, on a career as a jazz drummer. And this is a film that, yes, as you watch, you cannot take your eyes off the performances. And when you know that it's Damien Chazelle was a jazz drummer and he wrote this film as his time. He never had a professor this bad, but it's a lot of, the tensions and the uncertainties of being in a music school. This movie was based on a 18-minute short that he did the year before with J.K. Simmons in the role, and it was bought for $3.3 million to make a feature-length film that they shot in 19 days on 14-hour workdays, in which Chazelle, funny enough, was in a car accident, much like the Miles Teller character, and checked himself out of hospital an hour later with concussion to finish directing this film. And you can only imagine how high the tension must have been on this set to get it going. But for it, if I said Robin Williams was one of the all-time great performances on the Rushmore, I give J.K. Simmons for his performance in this film as far, because, there are gasp-worthy scenes throughout, and essentially the biggest one, I saw this movie at WIF, the 2013 WIF, maybe the year before it came out, or the 14 in the September, and it came out the later winter season. And once the change happens in the last little bit, and how it kind of goes in cat and mouse sort of thing, I remember watching and being like, oh my God. And then where Terrence gets the final over on him, and then that goes into how Miles earns his respect ultimately. But yeah, as for being a mentor, it's bad. It's wrong. He caused one of his previous students to kill himself because of the tension and because of how strict he is. But he is a psychopath who believes that he is squeezing every ounce of talent from these people, and for good or for bad, he will either use them to make lemonade, or he will discard their used bodies on his way to find the next one. So my number one, easily, and a movie I was glad to talk about, is Whiplash.
That's great. Yeah, I saw it in theater as well, and for that entire final scene, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat in the theater, and the scene's going on, and the movie ends, and I realized that I hadn't breathed in 3 or 4 minutes, and I let out this because I wasn't breathing. I'd stopped breathing. I was holding my breath almost the entire last scene, because it's so intense and so crazy, and you just don't know where it's going to go. And it was one of those movies where I could, like you said, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. I was so into everything that was going on, invested in all the different characters. I think that the the only flawed stuff is the stuff with Melissa Benoit. It's okay. You know, it kind of just shows his dedication and his obsession.
They go on one date, and then he breaks up with her because she's gonna resent him for how much he's dedicated. Of course.
So that's kind of the weakest part, but it's fine.
Yeah,
but
great
all the rest of
polarizer
it
in
is
it too. Great polarizer.
Oh man, for sure. It's but yeah, it was one of the ones I like absolutely loved. It was my favorite from that year by far. And I was obsessed with it for a while. So it's I'm glad it's your number one.
Oh,
and
I think I added it too and was like, no, like I said, and even listening to it, and I remember watching it and being like, this is the biggest star-making role I've seen for Miles Teller. And then I even thought about it. I had a conversation about Miles Teller like a week ago, and I'm just like, man, he was like the 6th lead in the Divergent movies, and then he picked the shitty Fantastic Four, and then he got in a fist fight with Josh Trank there. Apparently, he's just an asshole. He was cast in La La Land, and then Chazelle fired him. And then I'm like, he got so derailed that he's like kind of back on track with Top Gun Maverick. But like seeing this movie, I'm like, he's going to be the next megastar. Like he brings every inch of acting perfection in this, and it's a perfect cat and mouse game.
For sure. Cool.
Okay.
Matt,
my number one was going to be my number one no matter what. Again, part of a franchise I hold close to my heart.
I know for sure.
The Karate Kid.
Oh, this is not what I thought you were going to go. I thought you were going to go, there can be only one.
Oh, it's on the list. It got knocked off.
Man.
This is the one. Somebody had to have it. We weren't.
Yeah.
Like, this is
I already used it on the list, or else it would have been.
I feel like I haven't.
Yeah. I'm not uncertain that I haven't either, but it's getting on here for sure. The Karate Kid, and it's perfect for this list because you get to see the polar opposites of, you know, how a trainer is supposed to, how a mentor is supposed to treat their protege or their apprentice. With you got Mr. Miyagi and Daniel LaRusso in a far more gentler form of training, and then you have Kreese and Johnny Lawrence and the rest of the Cobra Kai, and how more or less not to do it. But there's always going to be an argument over which, you know, is the cooler way. So there are so many, especially now, Cobra Kai fans who were Cobra Kai fans when this movie came out. They didn't care if they were villains. They loved the black uniforms. And they love saying sweep the leg.
And those skeleton costumes.
Exactly. And the skeleton costumes. So I'm sure we've all seen it, and I'm sure everyone watching should have seen it by now. Daniel LaRusso is a New Jersey transplant to California. He is not enjoying his stay there. He makes friends with his apartment building maintenance man, Mr. Miyagi, who he discovers. No, he doesn't know he doesn't know he learns karate until after he's pissed off the Cobra Kai.
Wait, we're not talking about Jaden and Jackie?
Oh,
no, man.
The Kung Fu Kid? No, get that.
Please continue.
He pisses off the Cobra Kai dojo one too many times. They come to beat him up. Mr. Miyagi saves him using his Miyagi-Do karate. He and then decides to take Daniel on as his student. No, they are going to the dojo to see if they can talk it out.
Mm-hmm.
Kreese decides absolutely not. We settle things with our fist, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Miyagi says, "Okay, we'll see you at the tournament." And then over the course of 2.5 weeks or something like that,
turns him into a karate master.
He becomes the karate
by painting fences.
Oh my gosh!
And
waxing cars and sanding the floor.
Yeah.
Using the muscle memory, and then he does show him how to throw a couple of punches,
which he uses to apparently beat people that have been doing it for years. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's the thing. The Cobra Kai, they have their blind rage as they attack them. They don't see all of the moves. It's almost like Kung Fu chess or whatever that movie you were talking about.
Yeah.
Now, my favorite part of the movie is the ending. The tournament is terrific. And then the final fight, Daniel versus Johnny. Throughout the movie, Mr. Miyagi says, win, lose, it doesn't matter. You leave with some form of respect. You don't, when he learned karate, he didn't fight for points. You fought for life. At a certain point in the tournament, Daniel gets hurt. His leg is bruised, or his knee is bruised. They're in the back, and that's pretty much where he says, "Mr. Miyagi, can't you help me with this?" Because he had healed his shoulder earlier in the film, and Miyagi says, "Win, lose, it doesn't matter." And Daniel says, "No, I have to fight because they'll know they got the best of me if I don't." So he does. He helps him out. Daniel comes out into the fight. They have a 1 or 2 quick points, and Daniel lines up his crane kick, which he saw Miyagi do earlier. And in that moment, when Daniel has his arms up and his leg up, ready for Johnny to attack, they cut to Pat Morita's face, Mr. Miyagi's face, and you can see that win, lose, doesn't matter motto goes right out the window when his face is like, yes, he is going to win. And I get goosebumps every time I see it. Crane kick to Johnny in the face, which is not an illegal move. Daniel wins the tournament. He is cemented as the Karate Kid for 2 more movies and a TV show on Netflix, season 4 later this year.
And it also has, hold on, one of the best around, one of the best montages of all time.
Really good. We talked about how the chess dominoes of this, how this was written for Rocky 3, and then they went with the Tiger, and then I think this is for Flash, maybe? One of them dance movies. And then for Karate Kid, it's perfect for Karate Kid. It's perfect for a fight montage. It's great.
So I was like, man, we can't not talk about Karate Kid, and we can't talk about Karate Kid and not talk about You're the Best Around, because
the whole soundtrack is amazing.
But
yes, agreed. And we talked about it last night at trivia. A Cruel Summer, Bananarama,
which I learned. Well, it came up when we were playing trivia in the background, and I made mention of it being on the Karate Kid soundtrack, which it isn't. It's in the movie, but Bananarama said we don't want it on the soundtrack.
Ooh.
So on the album, it's not there because the movie, pumped up the the like for that song that, well, we're going to put it on our own album, so they buy that instead.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say too, we talked about when I was doing a rewatch last summer though, but it's John Alvinson. He's taken the Rocky playbook. He directed Rocky in 76. He's taken the Rocky playbook. He's aging it down and making a more of a young Rocky, which we talked about, and the montage and that, and it follows the same beats to an extent, kind of on the West Coast. But it's a smart strategy that works, and exactly, so it paid off.
There's
and Pat Morita got an Oscar
nomination. Yep. Yeah. There's one point in the movie where they're training on the beach, and Daniel's trying to kick some waves coming in, and you can in the movie commentary, I think John Alverson is talking about Ralph Macchio being in there, and then off camera he says, or they shout out, "Ralph, are you okay?" And then Ralph says, "It's a little rocky." And John says, "Great, that's what we're going for." Little rocky. Blah, blah, blah.
All right. So guys, I don't know if you notice, but we've talked about a bunch of movies, but I haven't talked about a horror movie yet. And so usually I got to throw my token horror movie in. But this one is not a token horror movie. This one is one of the greatest horror movies. It is, in fact, the first horror movie to win a Best Picture. It is the one of 3 movies to sweep the 5 categories of the Oscars. I am talking from 1991, The Silence of the Lambs, directed by Jonathan Demme.
Play on player.
And so Silence of the Lambs, humongous movie, of course. Can you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah, that and Clary.
So you talk. It stars around. Oh man, the main character, Khalees Starling, is a FBI trainee at Quantico, and we open with her, training at Quantico, and she gets a call into the office of her first. This is Khalees Starling, her first mentor, and that is Jack Crawford. And so. Jack Crawford is the head of the psych department in the FBI, and he kind of takes her under his wing and sends her on assignment. And it's a special assignment to visit an inmate. And we don't know what kind of inmate it is. We're going to discover it, and it's kind of a little sinister. He has a little alternative motives. It's not purely a teacher thing where he's kind of being sneaky about it because he wants to get information from that inmate, and by doing it, he sends her in to do this. Get him to do this survey, this inmate, and of course we end up meeting her second mentor, which of course is Hannibal Lecter.
Right.
And so, between the two of them, as the movie goes on, she starts to learn different things from both of them. And so they're obviously on either end of the spectrum where, Scott Glenn or Jack Crawford is teaching her the ropes of being an FBI agent and teaching her how to profile a killer. But then you have Hannibal Lecter, who's on the other side of the spectrum, and he's also teaching her how to profile. And instead of just giving her the answer, he could just basically say, this is Buffalo Bill. He wants her to find out for herself. So he's, dropping clues and stuff, but he's teaching her how to profile a killer because he himself is a psychiatrist. He knows how to profile very well, and that's kind of what they want him to do. But he doesn't want to play ball. He wants her to, do it herself, and through that process he gains the respect for her and gains to admire her. At the end of the movie, he says, I'm not going to come after you because the world is a better place with you in it. And so she earns his respect by the end of the movie, and they have this kind of great relationship between a serial killer and the FBI agent. But the whole movie is has a great device in that the fact, and the book, based on the book by Thomas Harris, has a great device where she is a trainee, and so through her training we get all the information that we need fed to us because we're following her, right? She needs to learn all these things, and through that we get all our information. And so it's a great technique of having us follow along in the procedures, and we can find out all the procedures because she's also learning them. And so instead of just boring laying it all out, she's being taught by these two different guys, and through the process of tracking him down. And I don't have to sell you on this movie. This is one of the greatest movies of all time. We've talked about it. Me and Scott and Jim actually went to see it at the drive-in down by the river. That was the only time I've ever seen it on the big screen, so be able to see it on the big screen.
What was great about that, and
amazing.
When we talked about movie experiences, I wanted to shout it out because we watched it too, and I think we watched it with my top down in my Jeep at the start of fall, so it was a little chilly. Yep. So when you see the start and the credits, and it's like with the forest as well too, and it's like cold because it's a very cold movie. It's in cellars, and like you feel the cold. And I remember being like, "Oh, this is neat," because you can hear the wind rustling here too. It added to the film as well too.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So I was so glad we got to do that. It's a movie that I have watched a ton. I own all the movies. I had the Criterion of this. I've read all the books. They get worse as they go along, but that's besides the point. I love Manhunter as well. Obviously, I think Manhunter's come up in another episode, and it is also inspired. I'm going to bring up a little thing that we had. So we had a party that we party that I DJ'd at, and me and my buddy Steve, we threw this dance party, and for the final DJ things, I got carted out on a much like Hannibal Lecter on this thing. I was strapped into this cart with a straitjacket, and came out as Hannibal Lecter to DJ.
So sick.
One of my favorite costumes I've ever had. It was my mom actually made that straitjacket. I think she sold it to somebody who needed it for a movie that they were making, which
Lethal Weapon 2?
Yeah. And so it was just a great moment that I'll never forget, being carted out to, and I had, I made this whole like video to play along with it on the screen as I'm being carted out with this creepy music and everything. So Silence will always have a special place in my heart, just in general for the movie, but also for, all the connections I've made through it. It's just a fantastic movie, obviously. Like I said, and don't be deceived. Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie. Get that like thriller crap out of here. Every time that I hear people talking about it as being a thriller and not a horror movie, Hannibal Lecter bites off part of a guy's face, proceeds to cut another guy's face off and wear it, and then it disembowels a guy and hangs him up like an angel. That's no thriller. That right there is a horror movie. So don't be fooled. It is a horror movie that would deserve to win the Oscar. All the participants deserve to win. All the other participants, Jonathan Demme, Jodie Foster, and Anthony Hopkins, all deserve to win their Oscars. It is a perfect film from start to finish. And it is definitely in my top movies of all time. So I'm glad to finally use it on a list, and this is the one I chose to use it on.
It's great.
I love that movie as well, and I've seen it 700 times.
Yeah,
but I have to rewatch it again because, as we were talking about this being a mentor-protege, mentor-apprentice movie, and you brought up, of course, Clarice Starling is one of Hannibal Lecter's apprentices, not unlike a previous apprentice in Will Graham.
That's right.
If you watch Manhunter or Red Dragon, or read the book Red Dragon, he helps Will Graham the same way. Now, I need to rewatch both of those movies because the way he treats Will Graham is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
In that he wants Will Graham to become as insane as he is, which actually does work. At one point in the dialogue, you hear Will say he had to spend time in an asylum because he couldn't get the dark thoughts that Hannibal Lecter put in there.
That's right.
Now, Clarice doesn't seem to have that problem, and I'm wondering,
and so that's where the sequels come in. Right? You start to get into Hannibal, and then like it goes there, right?
I think a lot of it was like, oh, does he have a love and an attraction? And then Thomas Harris is like, yeah, he does. And then let's go with that. And you're like, there's a difference between subtext and overt text. Yeah. And he crosses over, jumps pretty quickly to it. Yeah.
It's just a bad idea to me. I like that, they have those undertones, like you said, throughout that film. You get that, and he kind of like plays at that. Even the stuff where he says he plays with the idea of Jack Crawford and her, right? When he plays the idea of, oh, does Jack see you sexually? Do you think he thinks of you sexually? And kind of plays that too on that too. And I like having that being, just under the surface and not, on full display like Hannibal has. But I will say too, you're talking about watching those two movies. The show goes even further.
The show. That's when we said about the Will Graham
and Hannibal, and like that's that relationship between those two in the show is drawn out and perfect.
What's my favorite thing? Homoerotic undertones. That show is dealing it to the point where Mads and Dancy were like, should our characters kiss? And they and me watching on NBC, it's like, yes, they probably should. So.
That show is fantastic. Bring it, please bring it back to finish it off. We need to see the true ending of that show. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
that was great, guys.
So if there's nothing else,
no, there
Nope.
is nothing else.
That's all.
Okay.
I was gonna say it's just the three of us. Do you guys want to do a
3-person draft?
We can if you want to.
If
Is
you
it
want,
too late
I'm
to
down.
bring Jim on?
You can't make it tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say in the chat, and I don't know if you want to edit this, but whatever you want. You want to or not? It's all three of our topics, anyways.
I mean, I'm for it. I just want to leave Jim out. I don't know how much work he's put into
talked
this.
to him. He said he's got a miss. So you want to wait then?
AB,
We can wait.
we can wait.
I mean, when you start diluting it down to 15 movies or whatever,
that's fine.
Yeah, we're all gonna get good picks.
Get good picks, and it's gonna be too hard. It gets into the nitty gritty when you start getting into your 17th and 18th pick or 18th movie, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, take us home then.
But
So this is where you edit it in the good thing.
no, I'm gonna leave all that in. I'll just say, stay tuned on the Mack Flash Facebook page for several other drafts. This is going to air much later than today. This is June 22nd. This will be airing sometime in July, I think.
Mhm.
So go on to Mack Flash Entertainment on the Facebook page. There are plenty of draft results there. You can vote for any one of those as they come into play. If you want to look as fly as we do with your Mack Flash hoodie, head over to wearproud.ca. Like, share, and subscribe. Check out everything we have to offer on the YouTube channel and on Patreon. For AB, for Scott, I've been Matt. It's been a ride. We'll see you guys later.